collaboration in the fight against crime. I think Nehemiah was having the very same vision in his mind, that we cannot fight crime if our walls are broken. We have to rebuild the walls. We speak about the walls of immorality. We speak about many criminalities that are happening. If we come together as a community, we can rebuild those walls. People can feel safe. People can feel protected because we come together to build. Now, the heart to work is because their heart was in what they were doing. They had goodwill to do it. They had enthusiasm to do it. They had patriotism in them because they were not only doing it for themselves. Nehemiah told them, you are not doing this for you, but you are also doing it for the generations that are coming after you. Whatever we do, we always have to think about the people that are coming after us. We have to think about the generations that are coming after us. They will ask us and say, what did you do in your time? As I'm closing, I'm not a politician. I know there was a time where there was a political party that was talking about gatekeeping. We are gatekeepers in our city. God is expecting us. As a pastor, I'm a gatekeeper spiritually. As a businessman, you are a gatekeeper. As a CPF member, you are a gatekeeper. In other words, to be a gatekeeper, nothing should come in my city without me knowing. Nothing should come in my city without me addressing it. Nothing should come into my city without me taking action against it if it's negative. They all said, let us arise and rebuild. I'm saying to us, let us arise and rebuild. Let's bow our heads and pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning. You are so wonderful and precious. We haven't seen a Father like you who loves us and cares for us the way you do. Heavenly Father, this morning, we have just woken up. Sleeping is natural, but waking up is a miracle. Waking up is grace from you. When we slept, yes, we hoped we were going to wake up. And there are those who also hoped that they will wake up today, but they could not. Not because they are stupid, not because we are wiser than them, but it's by your grace that we are here. We therefore thank you as we are gathered here this morning. Heavenly Father, we pray, give us the spirit of Nehemiah to rebuild the walls of South Africa so that everyone can feel safe wherever they are. People are no more feeling safe in their houses. People are no more feeling safe in their homes. Heavenly Father, we pray for this meeting, for this wonderful and powerful meeting that is here, for all stakeholders that are gathered here. We pray, Heavenly Father, that let the outcome of this meeting, let the outcome of this Indaba propel us to continue rebuilding the walls that are broken in South Africa. We ask this in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior. We pray for all the speakers who will be speaking. We pray for everyone who will be presenting here. We ask this, Heavenly Father, knowing that you will never leave us nor forsake us, because you promised that you will be with us. As you were with Nehemiah, you are going to be with us as we rebuild this country. In the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, we bless your name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Lieutenant Colonel Spanioni. Let us rebuild our borders. Let us have corruption-free borders. Let us rebuild our community policing relations. But importantly, let us be gatekeepers, not doorkeepers. Thank you, Mruti. So we would want to acknowledge the program director, Sergeant Koza, she's still the program director. TJ Masilela is still the program director. But we are also assisted by the DF SA, Mpo Masina, Nosipiwe Ngubeni. Thank you very much. You've been doing a very good job in relating the messages that we've been witnessing here today. So we're going to ask the opening remarks by the Northwest #1 Cop, Lieutenant General Gwena, to come and give us the opening remarks. A very good friend of ours. General.
Thank you, Program Director, the Deputy Minister of Police, Mr. Castle Matale, Inkosi Mavuso from the House of Traditional Leaders and Kwesan, the Chairperson of the Provincial Board of CPFs, Mr. Homan, the Chairperson of NCPCF, all CPF members present, all community members present, protocol observed. Good morning. DM, it's an honor for me to stand here before you to articulate on what we've been doing for the past 2 days, which is the culmination of what is going to be presented to us today. I would want to borrow from where policing originated. The person who formally introduced policing in the 1800s, Sir Robert Peel. And in our own, we had, who passed on, may his soul rest in peace, Professor Chart van Heerden, who we regarded as the father of policing in South Africa. They all viewed policing from the perspective that there is no policing without the community. Initially, the community were actually policing themselves before the formal policing came on board. The groups of families were divided into 10, and they were referred to as a shire. And whoever was leading that group was referred to as a reef. That is where the word sheriff comes from. A group of 10 was a shire headed by one person called reef, hence sheriff. We know for now it went over now to the court being a messenger of the court. But the work of the police and the work of the court were closely intertwined. There were times when police officials could be prosecutors from the rank of a sergeant. If I have to borrow DM from the say of people living with disability, not disabled persons, people living with disability. I once had a session where I referred to disabled person. And they said, no, we are not disabled. We are people living with disability. If I have to borrow from them, they've got a saying that says, nothing for us without us. There is no way that the police can police the community without the involvement of the community. The police are referred to as the active partners because they are getting paid to do the job. And the community is referred to as passive partners because they've got a responsibility to ensure that their properties are safe. It is against this background that the vision of the South African Police Services, the South African Police Service, was coined. That is to ensure that all people in South Africa are and feel safe. Now, the feeling safe part of it is a perception issue. That is where the community comes in. That is where us being the police, we have to be transparent, we have to be accountable. The community policing forum members are a buffer between the police and the entire populace. They actually know our processes, they know what we are doing. And with their knowledge, they share with the community. They are the ones who are telling the people that despite the fact that this person has committed robbery, the court has let this person go on bail. They are the people who have to explain the processes, the constitutional law that indicates, or the rights, the constitutional rights of the individual that indicates that all people have got a right to bail. But certain provisions must be met. Because the moment the community see that somebody who committed a crime is outside, they say, no, the police bajele chocho, without actually understanding the whole thing. That is why we need the community, to share these messages with the community out there. This concept of the community and the police also finds expression currently in what we see in the police uniforms. I think most of the community members, even some of the police officials, you all see police officials in uniform with this blue, dark blue, small rope called a lanyard. This is part and parcel now of the police uniform. But where originally does it come from? It also comes from ancient times, during the era of Robert Peel, during the era of Professor van Heerden. This lanyard actually, it's supposed to have a whistle. It was a whistle holder. When a crime was being committed, then somebody would blow the whistle, then the community will quickly come to where the whistle is being blown and arrest the perpetrator. The importance of community policing. Nothing for us without us. The decisions that are going to be taken here are the decisions that are going to be implemented right through the country. The decisions here mainly were focusing on certain strategic issues: capacitation, resourcing, education, as well as multidisciplinary collaboration that Muruti has spoken about. The work of the Commission is of paramount importance. It's going to plan the way up, to pave the way forward for us today, for the whole of South Africa. You coming here as members of the community, the importance thereof cannot be overemphasized. You left your daily chores to be here. The DM left his office. Provincial commissioners left their offices. And there are operations at provinces that started yesterday. Monday we must give feedback. That's how serious we are insofar as crime is concerned. The divisional commissioners are here also with us. But most importantly, community members who left their houses, who left their workspaces to come here and be with us so that we should craft a way forward for the country. Your importance cannot be overemphasized. I'm not doing the vote of thanks, but I felt the necessity to emphasize that. DM, on that note, I would like to thank everybody here, and we are looking forward to listen to the work done by the commissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Kwena. as we move, we acknowledge also and appreciate the chairperson of the young people, Chairperson Khataza. We're going to acknowledge as we move and appreciate your work. It's the last day today. But also we appreciate the community patrollers that are deployed, that are making us safe and our cars. We take note of the crime wardens that are also deployed here, the Green Machine, and we thank the Station Commander of Sunnyside for making us safe this far. We're going to start with the work of reporting back, and Brigadier Mackay will do the honors. Brigadier, take us through what should we expect from now.
May I greet our Deputy Minister, Mr. Matale, the NCPCF Chair, Mr. Woman, all provincial commissioners present, all divisional commissioners present, all DPCs, all stakeholders present, and please allow me to say all protocol observed. Good morning. DM, we started the journey on the 17th. You were with us, and yesterday we continued. We just want to have that recap and look at what have we observed and where did this journey start. Let us look at what brought us here together. There has been that growing concern that community police forums are not really functional. And these concerns were observed during the Izimbizo by our minister as well as our DM, complaints in other public platforms, but the real game changer was the SONA statement that was pronounced by our president on the 10th of February 2022, that is our president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's open the quote. Another area of immediate attention will be the re-establishment of community policing forums to improve relations and coordination between local police and residents of the areas they serve. It is clear from the observations of the expert panel that we need to take a more inclusive approach to assessing the threats to our country's security and determining the necessary responses. The journey started there. We then moved to say we need to host an Indaba. What is it that the Indaba had to cover? To develop a community policing working model for South Africa, if we need one, and if one is really needed, or even the thought. To define the role of community and other stakeholders on crime prevention. Who is where, for what, to do what, when. To develop mechanisms to improve functionality of community police forums. Let's define this functionality. I think the commissions went through that process. To develop support mechanism for community police forums at all levels. What support? Capacitation, resources, and so on. To determine how community policing can be institutionalized within SAPS as well as the country. So we then talk about now, this must become the norm and become our culture, that community policing should be our life on daily basis. The commission's layout, I'm not going to go through everything. We had Commission 1, which was facilitated by Mr. Itlo, where they dealt with community policing as a strategy. We had Commission 2, which was facilitated by Mr. Masugu, which dealt with the enhancing of community policing. We had Commission 3, which was facilitated by Mr. Mlojwa, looking at the integration of crime prevention approach. We had Commission 4, which was facilitated by Colonel Gauteng, looking at the promotion of community policing as a strategy. Those were our commissions. And this is what we are going to deal with immediately after this item, where we will look at the feedback from each commissions. Now let's touch on the highs of what we observed as we were moving around. We observed a well-balanced sittings where gender and diversity was visible. We also observed a pleasing feeling, which was 100% attendance. All the commission's DM were packed. We even had to bring some chairs from other rooms. And all commissions were visited by our senior managers, and it was also interesting to observe as they were participating in these commissions. There was order and respect. We all respected one another, and facilitators were able to cover all planned aspects, meaning the destination of what products we need to come back with to feed in all other commissions or delegates. We also managed by breaking the teams into the groups into smaller teams to allow everyone's voice to be heard. Because the commissions were packed, it was necessary to come up with how can we reach to everyone, and everyone should express his view, opinion, or comment in the commissions. We also observed that there was that atmosphere of allowing robust conversations in the commissions, which is healthy. Inclusivity was also observed, where all participants had an opportunity to stand up and present to other delegates in the commissions. And there was an observation of open discussions. The laws. We observed that time is always not enough for such discussions. In closing, you can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. That quote comes from Rabindranath Tagore. In those words, I would like to say thank you very much, DM, and thank you to all delegates. We will then now move to a session where we will allow all nominated presenters from each commission to come and share what is it that was discussed and what are the resolutions taken in the commissions. We request the following. We will give each presenter 20 minutes. Then we will then proceed to give all delegates an opportunity to reflect. That will be covered within 10 minutes, especially the delegates that were in the other commissions. But here is the trick. And this trick sits within our professionalism, our maturity when we get to such platforms. And that trick is, please get to the point so that we can manage the conversation, we can manage maturity, we can also manage time, because we also need to give others an opportunity to reflect on the work that has been produced by the other commissions. But looking at what we went through yesterday, we have great hope and trust that our maturity will fly within all of us. On those words, thank you very much.
We take this opportunity to acknowledge the National Commissioner of the Republic, General Masemola. Good morning, General. The real work starts. Commission 1. Commission 1, are you ready? I want to hear that energy. Commission 1, Commission 2, Commission 3, Commission 4. Are we ready? We take note of business against crime. We take note of Consumer Good Council. Thank you for being our friends. Commissions, Azishege. Where are the commissions? Commission 1, are you ready, Bob? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity. Masilel. Thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity, and thanks for Commission 1 for the opportunity once more to work and learn from you, to the Deputy Minister of the Police in the country. We thank the opportunity to the National Commissioner of the Police in the country, the Senior Management Divisional Commissioners, Provincial Commissioners, District and Station Commanders present here today, the NCPCF leadership led by Ndate Oman, the various provincial chairpersons present here, the various district and station chairpersons here, the strategic partners in the progressive movement of ensuring safety and the security, from the young brigades led by the capable leadership of Tate Khataza, Paksa, Consumer Goods Council, Spiritual Fraternity. We thank the opportunity to learn from you during the 3 days. Colleagues, for those that I did not categorically mention, it does not mean that we do not appreciate, we welcome the opportunity. Deputy Minister, allow me to sit straight on the Commission's mandate, which spoke to the question, is community policing understood by all? A very simple question, deep-rooted and very profound. And as a Commission, in our reflection, we understood that the key outcome was to develop an implementation guide for community policing, as if we understand it, with a view that at the end of the day, when we leave here as a Commission, we may have submitted a document that speaks to a guideline for the implementation of community policing. In our process, we also spend time reflecting on the identified challenges. And right at the top of it, we understood that there is a problem with the current legislation in its current form. We also spend time reflecting on the question of understanding community policing concept. Then understanding the legal mandate, understanding the concept itself, it begged the question of us to also traverse a bit in terms of what would be the resource requirement. And the collective wisdom of the Commission understood that community policing as a concept is inadequately resourced. We went on to look at the orientation. What are the issues in the space of developing strategic capacity on understanding community policing, not only within the partners, but even beyond the realm of the partnership of community policing? And without hesitation, you also looked at how do we measure performance for us to can speak about impact and all these other related matters. On the submission of the outdated legislative mandate, it is not an issue to say it is the entire act, but we had reason to believe that some sections of Chapter 7 of the South African Police Service Act may not necessarily be enabling for us to be able to can proceed in terms of unpacking and delivering on the mandate of community policing. Maybe you can share with the House to say Section 20 of the South African Police Service Act in its current form as amended speaks to the establishment and the existence of your area community police boards, but the sad reality is that policing in the country has evolved from the area boards to the cluster boards, from the cluster boards to the districts. Now, by and large, it would always create a legislative query or a complaint to say we still want to make a reference to the districts informed by a legislative provision that speaks to the existence of the areas. Section 21 of the South African Police Service Act, as amended, speaks to the establishment of the Provincial Community Police Board, but does not make provision for constituting the NCPCF in its current form, which by and large creates a problem of legitimacy and reception for this structure, because its authority would always be questioned because legislatively it is not defined. If we move from this premise and understanding that it means that there is an area that we may also look and see how we improve. Section 23, subsection 2 remains of cardinal importance because it speaks and defines the voluntary nature of these patriotic leaders here and above in the way in which they discharge their duties in collaboration with the police. But there is also a movement or a body of opinion that speaks to an issue of appreciation of these services in a form of a stipend. Unfortunately, in terms of legislation in its current form, it says that CPF members are always discharging their duties on a voluntary basis. As a result, that in itself, in principle, succumbs all negotiation on stipends. The ministerial regulations would be affected should these proposed legislative amendments eventually be successfully endorsed. The other issue that the Commission noticed was the constitutional deficiencies in the constitutions of the CPF, in a sense that the promulgation of the different community policing frameworks that will speak to your partnership policy, that will speak to your spiritual crime prevention, that will speak to your youth crime prevention, your safer cities, just to mention a few, they create a variation of the existing stakeholders. And it becomes a challenge because they cannot be accommodated in the CPF structures in their current form as promulgated by the Constitution. That would also speak to how some of these community-based structures that we would not be having within the CPF mainstream would find reason to exist because they feel like they don't find expression within the CPF. The other issue is that because that space is not regulated properly through policy, then it creates a problem of relations because then I'm a chairperson in a structure that I'm leading and I'm also a sitting member in another structure, but I also want to be recognized and felt as a chairperson. The issue of how do we balance the policy or the constitutional mandates of the various structures within your main CPF structure and framework becomes a challenge. The Commission further reflected on the question of understanding the community policing concept. When we came to a conclusion that can be justified to say there is low understanding of community policing concept, the community policing strategy itself and its related frameworks and how they relate. But also this understanding is not necessarily condensed within the partnership itself, but it extends also to the external partners. It is this that will see us having a problem of maintaining this integrated approach. The objective of integration will not be met, Mr. Khathaza, because our inability to identify our role within your mainstream community policing becomes a problem, and how we relate to each other. It means that if we cannot understand how we relate to each other, then we can never work together. The community policing strategy, by and large, is seen as an abstract strategy that stands alone and not linked to the existing strategic framework of the organization. Another noted moment the Commission reflected heavily on was the morale of the implementing agents of community policing, be it community members, be it the police themselves, be it strategic partners that are being roped in and invited and lobbied to can participate. It also became clear that because we don't understand and we can't communicate it very well, we also lose each other in the process and we become demoralized. The skill deficiency within which community policing is to be implemented also found expression within our commission. You can say we also need to look at the specific skills that we need to be having for us to be able to can deliver on community policing. And that was also seen as a challenge. On the question of resourcing, one was the issue of a funding model for community policing that will secure dedicated budget allocation and purify that space, because time and again there would be an issue that speaks to how is the strategy or how is community policing resourced. The personal equipment, the uniform, various stakeholders, identification, the cell phones with airtime, laptops with data to communicate and connect. There was also a consented view to say there needed to be dedicated vehicles for the CPFs and the boards, because the challenge experienced also become one of the factors that inhibits the proper implementation of community policing. We also noted, informed by the law skills deficiency, the capacitation of the human resource capital collectively in terms of implementing community policing. On the question of communication and marketing, we also observed that there is a need for strategy orientation. The community policing strategy was never workshopped and marketed to a level where it can be said it was communicated internally and externally to members for them to can understand. Now that makes it difficult for people to buy into a concept that they've never had a way of engaging or at least creating that uniformity in terms of understanding. The performance management system also were found lacking there. We needed to also say we also did not see a performance management system to monitor and evaluate the performance of the implementation of community policing. In this context, we also noted that we can't gauge the impact of community policing. Implemented in its infantry stages to now, the tool to measure the efficiency and the effectiveness of the CPF collectively and individually in community policy. We do not have a system that measures the performance of community leaders in the CPF forum, in the CP forum. We also would not have a detailed performance indicators for police in implementing community policing, except an indication on the resource allocation and management in support of community policing. We also understood that would speak to a challenge around transparency and accountability, which may also constrain the relations between the partners themselves. And the CPF needed to also develop its own value chain system and accounting standards, so that at the end of the day, collectively and individually as partners, we may be held to account on what is it that we are doing in all these endeavors. The proposed solution, one, the Commission suggests that we submit an amendment proposal for Chapter 7 of the South African Police Service Act, and the submission is to be processed through the Civilian Secretariat of the Police. The secondary proposed solution is that we develop a community police forum and board's policy framework. The nature thereof, the Commission felt should become of a unitary constitution that will speak to the different levels of policing and how we relate further. And this to be composed to be led by a team, a multi-stakeholder team led by your Civilian Secretariat for Police, your SAPS, NCPCF, National Youth Crime Prevention Board, the strategic partners, to can purify the space and how we relate from national going down, composition, speak to the element of composition of the CPF, structure as a structure, at station level, at district level, provincial level, and national level, and how we relate to each other in that context. Outline the roles and responsibilities of these different levels of policing So that it should not be an issue to can say we have found one thing in terms of what is it that we expect at station level, what is it that you expect at district level, what is it that you expect at provincial level, what is the role of the national level. Define a communication a protocol that will also guide how we communicate as members and handle information. A noted concern around intelligence, information management, and general information management. In that context, we need to preserve that. The resource management. Community policing as a resourced concept would need to have a platform where we speak about how we mobilize these resources, but equally so, how do we maintain them and how do we account for their utilization. The code of conduct for us as people in a partnership moving forward in dealing with matters of safety and security in the country. The rules and procedures on how CPFs operate. When do meetings sit? How are the meetings being convened? How are programs conceptualized? How are programs implemented? How do we report on such? When and how do we also make assessments? The performance management system broadly, at the end of the day, you can check whether we are still relevant in our cause. The electoral guidelines, so there can be uniformity in terms of how we get into office and how we leave office. When do we get into office and when do we leave office? The value chain system that binds all of us now. But to Pili principle, and what is it that we stand for as a value chain system, as community leaders? Because that will also inform the standards in terms of accountability. Now, the nature of the framework, like we say, it's a unitary constitution, should be in a position to can assist us in defining how we relate to these other structures, which are community-based, and how do we relate with each other through the various levels of policing. In your immediate future, as your quick win, informed by the 6 pillars of community policing, we propose that within your outreach, community outreach, awareness, and education and awareness, that is pillar number 1, your community engagements should become a formalized program. It should be a national imbizo led by the executive authority in partnership with the police management. But we also would wish to love and see a platform where we've got your provincial imbizo, where the MEC and the provincial commission are also engaging with us as communities. The district one, in terms of the governance level, the district mayor or the metropolitan mayor and the district commander engaging, and of cardinal importance at local level, the mayoral structures and the station management. There should be continuous engagement. Imbizos can never become a program that we see once in a while, but it should become a program that we also reach out and communicate, exchange views, and build this relationship, and also create awareness. Also, we are of the view that there needed to be a concerted effort across all structures within community policing to have a dialogue on GBVF and domestic violence that speaks to how do we collectively and individually in our space respond and complement policing interventions. On the second pillar of community policing strategy, we build community resilience to crime. 1, we institutionalize your youth crime prevention, youth-based crime prevention. That will speak to your vulnerable groups. That will speak to your school-based crimes safety. That will speak to your learning environment safety. That will speak to project harmony in that space. We would also be looking at the issue on moral regeneration. Your sports' future within your drug and substance abuse space. Your spiritual crime prevention to deal with the injured spiritual values of us individually and collectively in your vulnerable groups, your multidisciplinary collaboration within your community policing. We speak about your Ears and Eyes program, project, and you speak about rural safety. Your community policing and public order, your community in blue, becomes of cardinal importance. The collective platform for the patrol, the operational wing of community policing from us as civilians needs to be activated so that we can also increase visibility. Chairperson Masilela, I see in Gauteng you wear green. But yeah, we welcome you in the community in blue, even though we see that the wardens are still branded in green. Communication and marketing, strategy orientation. Let's go out, let's speak about the strategy. Let's develop a strategic understanding of what community policing is, so that it becomes easier for the stakeholders to can buy into the concept of community policing, and eventually it becomes easier for them to can become willing partners in the quest to make safer our country. Capacity, capacitation, and resourcing the CPFs, which is the last pillar on community policing. The issue of the framework is of cardinal importance. We still make that dedicated emphasis on it. The unitary constitution will help us a lot. A costed resource management proposal for us, that when we go to business against crime and other strategic people who may be able to can fund, we may be able to can mobilize the resources there. They may not necessarily be cash, but at the end of the day, they will have financial implication. Mobilize personnel equipment and personnel equipment in this context would speak to identification, the regalia for the patrollers, the cabs, the jerseys, the identification, on all these other matters that would speak to the cell phones and the laptops. And develop a funding model, Mr. Oman, that will eventually make it possible for all these to happen. On behalf of Commission 1, we still invite you on a journey to a safer South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commission 1. We're now calling Commission 2. Commission 2, are you ready? Is your work here? Immediately. I'm told that you might want to have inputs. I thought at plenary we'll do that when we consolidate, but democratic processes allows that you have a bite, although we are working on time and that there is a consolidation slot. Do we want to make inputs now, or we make inputs once all presenters have been to plenary? My honest opinion, it says all of them, once they're done presenting, you then make inputs. You can take a seat, Mr. Klo. We will do all in one, otherwise we'll spend so many time. By 1 o'clock, we must be out of here. We have people coming from Kalahari with us today. Commission 2, you ready? Pico?
I'm ready, Manier. Mhlonishwa, DM, my national commissioner, provincial commissioners, all service management, my national CPF chairpersons, provincial chairpersons, who I all call chair of chairs, and all delegates, and to be safe, all protocol observed. Our task as Commission 2 was an objective on the question of how do we enhance community policing to make it effective in combating crime and violence. And the question also added to what minimum resources are required to strengthen the role and the capacity of the CPF within the community policing strategy. So, before we could really attend to this, we had to unpack these questions and to say, is this vehicle moving or aina masondo? And what we did in our unpacking, we started questioning ourselves. Is this community policing strategy working? The answers were divided. Some of us said it was working and some said it wasn't working. The reasons some said it's working is that in our presence, we've got CPFs in place who just keep fires burning. But on the white paper, we've got challenges. And we started asking ourselves about the challenges that are now causing this policy not to work. And in one of those, we talked about the benefits. Who is supposed to be the beneficiary? This policy must benefit the community. But we also found that in other spaces, there is individual benefits, and some other corporates also take advantages of this. So our statement was that this policy must benefit the community, which means the community must take charge of this policy. And one of the things that led us to this was that we need to understand that before you even become a SEPS member, a political party leader, a councillor, or whatever you are in the community, you first start becoming a member of the community. And then you move on. So we also then moved to point 2. Point 2 was Ubuntu approach, Bantu Pile. We said this community policing concept must address this Ubuntu, which we feel that we have lost. There is a bit of dysfunctionality in our Ubuntu approach as a community, and it's part of bringing the challenges to our policing concept. And then we also addressed that there are some things that need attending to, which are part of crime prevention initiatives, which we believe must be community-driven. We also recognized that everyone in the community has an important role to play. We cannot implement this policy community policing concept without the collaboration of everyone. It means that everyone must be a role player. And I've got a sort of a slide there. That slide talks about who is our role players. We've got role players. We've got our role players, and there you see a sketch. We've got the CPF, the SEPS, and the other departments like your community safety and security in the middle there. But then you've got your Department of Home Affairs, your Department of Justice, your Department of Education, just to mention a few, who are part of the role players, including other people. So we said we need to make sure that all these stakeholders are mobilized in all levels and be resourced fully to make sure that this concept works. And before we really start talking to the resources, which was our main objective, we said it's important that we identify this. The community policing is about governments. It's about bringing law and order, transparency, and accountability of all stakeholders. We have to develop an enhanced system of collaboration. Can you take this and maybe? Okay. Okay. So ensuring that both police and community have a deep understanding of this community. We found that we are interpreting this differently. The community does its own thing, and the SAPS is doing its own thing. So we need a uniform that will talk from nationally to your local police stations. The understanding also of the profiles of our community we serve by identifying crime hotspots and also the businesses, the churches, the legal liquor outlets, the TISH, which is the township, informal settlement, and hostels in our areas. They become part of our profiling, and we understand that as community, before we really even talk about the functionality of this. And then the indirect partnership, making use of the existing structures and the capacity building. We also talked about the transparency of which we feel is lacking somewhere in our correspondences as role players. So it is important that all CPOs not informed have continuous training, communication, engaging, collaborating in this community policing concept, which we believe is not an event that you attend and close the door on it, but it becomes a lifestyle which is continuous, and it becomes a working relationship that you keep working on each and every day. The integrated and multidisciplinary corresponding resourcing of all stakeholders, what is needed and what is not needed. So it is important that before we really talk about the resourcing, who needs to buy in? We said all members within the community. That includes the police. We're taking that fine line of police is the CNP. And when we talk about the CNP, it talks about all role players in our community. The community is diverse. Our station commanders need to understand this and also need to flag this down to their members under their leadership. All community leaders in our communities, from pastors to your faith-based organizations, irrelevant of what is their belief. Other sister departments in the government and outside of the government, they need to understand that community policing strategy is a concept that needs to police us as a nation and as a country. So, one of the things that we also looked at was that why the buying in is difficult. We identified the lack of education, awarenesses, not only just in the community, but also among SAFS members. We found that some of even our police officers don't understand the concepts of proper policing. We also found the lack of trust. The transition from police force to police service hasn't been well achieved. There are some who are still left behind in the transition. The lack of trust is also brought in the doubt within the community, which then becomes a hindrance in making buy-in easy. The power struggles within organizations and within communities, and within those who are empowered, including your CPFs, by the lack of understanding. So, in also the multidisciplinary approach, the youth, the businesses, and the faith, everyone is pulling on their side. We have become individuals who are not wanting to cooperate into a unit so that we can understand the concept of this of this policing concept. And the biggest of all, we've also found out that the dysfunctionality of families has now become the biggest problem in our lives. It's making policing very difficult because our constitution has been mandated in a way that it gives power and freedom in some areas where we feel it's becoming a hindrance to just deal with disciplining our kids. And some of us as parents, we've also given the responsibility of disciplining our kids to the teachers at school, which brings problems. As the CPF also, we've seen that drugs are now becoming common in schools from young age and so forth. We've also highlighted the high levels of crime due to the social ills and challenges that we have. We've found that corruption has become something that most people want to add into their CVs, just as an upgrade. If you are not corrupt, you are a nobody. And some of our community members have passed corruption with a cum laude system. And they have made policing become very difficult. They've now asked a question that, what is in for me when you want service delivery, including policing? We've seen corruption destroy the infrastructures that help policing. Your ESCOM, your second goods businesses, you name them, they've become part of life. We've also seen that we are working in silos, both in government and in communities. We've become individuals who look at their own stakes, but forgotten the unit that is needed to form that partnership in our role playing. So these were the things that we looked at so that we can then now look at the resourcing of what is needed. What are the minimum resources that are required to strengthen the role and the capacity of the CPF within the policing strategy? We had a serious challenge as a commission when we looked at the word CPF, because some said it does not incorporate other structures. It talks about CPF. But we also came up with an agreement that the C is the community relevant of who you are. You need to understand that. You might be ANC, you might be Afro Forum, you might be DA, you are part of the community. You will fall under that community bracket. That will have to work with the P to make the F. So, in resourcing, the entire resourcement plan, we said it must be in the legislation. Currently, we've seen that a number of things are not properly regulated. And the EGs there, you've got your Chapter 7 of the SEPs, and the other misquoted ones on the 2001 integration. So it's important that every part of the functionality of the CPF is then properly legislated so that we can understand our way forward in terms of operating as a structure and really giving us the bite, to bite where we must bite. We also looked at the issues of training and development, that we are lacking in terms of training and development. The awarenesses, the community does not know in some areas what is this policy concept and what is the CPFs. So we said we need to look at a standardized national model of the CPF so that the CPF can be the same. Let's not have a CPF in Free State that has got its own policies. And let's not have a CPF in Gauteng that has got its own policies. But let's have a standardized CPF that anyone here can be able to identify. If today you are from Gauteng, you were to visit Western Cape, and you see anyone in the CPF, you will be able to recognize them because of the uniformed, standardized pattern that is used there. And we also looked at the CPF model funding. How do we find the CPFs? How do we do this in a standardized format? So that, you know, one CPF is not funded by that particular organization, that particular government department, but it allows a legislated format to be used. And then we said, this is the part of the resourcing, then it needs to be directed where it can enhance the fight against crime. We said, DM and my national commissioner, police stations all across South Africa must have spaces for office space so that the CPF can have an office space for them to function within the police stations. And that it will be easier for them to engage with the station commanders and all that are in that station. And also strengthening the relationship between that. We also looked at the vehicles. The challenge that comes with the vehicles, that they need to be dedicated vehicles that will transport CPF members to and fro to where they are needed, including meetings and so forth. We do understand the short of resources, but we said this will be needed so that we can enhance the policing needs. We talked about the challenges also that comes with the vehicles. One of the protocol rules is that a metro policeman cannot ride in the same car with a SEPS member. And with this rule, we find that it defeats the objectives of fighting crime. These are law enforcers. These are force multipliers. We will understand if it's patrollers or if it's something else. But if it's a metro police officer and a SEPS, why can they not ride in the same car? Vice versa. And I heard this even today from one of the police officers that I had a chance to speak to. We also talked about capacitating our CPF with two-way radios to allow communication to become easier, including cell phones, laptops, stationaries. And I am glad to say that some of the provinces have started that. And I know the 144 stations in Gauteng have been provided with data, dongles, and most of the chairpersons have been given this cell phone. But we don't want this to be a Gauteng thing. We want this to be a national thing. And we also looked at the identifying of CPF members. We said it will be important that the CPF members have identity cards so that people will be able to identify them. Currently, as the deputy chairperson of Gauteng Provincial Police Board, I had a rogue unit of patrollers that went to patrol outside the boundaries of the CPF, and the 2 of them were shot dead and the 3 were injured. The community outside there did not understand that. So these are the things that we will also want to do and understand. Your attires, your reflectors, so that we will be able to identify, as I've said before. Not anyone wearing a reflector jacket will be called a patroller. So it's important that the attire be national. We also looked at empowering the community with panic buttons. And for example, in Gauteng, I've got a project that is going on about panic buttons. Nobhala uyishaya lapho sive ukuthi ikhona yini. Those are part of the things that we want us as the CPF and as an organization. If I'm saying the CPF, under our custodian, I'm talking the police and so forth, to try and implement to our communities, to use including torches and loud hailers. We know we've got whistles and so forth. Sometimes these whistles don't work. We also looked at resourcing, training and development. That we've got a standardized training curriculum for community stakeholders and the police. We have identified a gap that in some areas or in some police stations, station commanders don't appoint people through their qualification. They appoint them to tick the box. And they don't have the passion to do what they need to do. We've also found out that in some stations, our station commanders appoint the pension fund team, which is those who are about to go to pension are given the community-related duties. And when we speak to them, we find that they don't have the energy to engage the community. So it is very important that we look at these things and make sure that we bring in passionate people who can deal and enhance policing. Because this is an ongoing relationship. It needs your warm-up gym relationship, not your sitting chair type of approach. We need the implementation of capacity building workshop in relationship to the policies. We've got all type of policies. We've got a problem with drug abuse currently. We need policies that will come and talk to that. We've got a relationship of unemployment. What are we doing with other government role players, which I've already done, detailed there? What is our role as a community to engage those, especially the young ones, to take them off the street and engage them in policies that will help fight crime. And we found that some of our workshop materials, including even our education curriculum, is wrong, because it's now pushed everyone into technology, and we have left the technical side of issues. And by looking at that, we found that it's created a huge gap in the unemployment industry. And we found that any loose head becomes a dangerous head in our community. We also need to have an ongoing community awareness program and the induction and orientation of every member in the CPF. And most important, that they must sign a code of conduct. We will need to have a live database of CPF members nationally. When you want to tap into DM at any time, you'll be able to know the numbers of your CPF members in the country, those who are serving or retired or not serving. We'll also need to have succession plans. In some areas, we don't have succession plans. We will find that we have an MEC that comes and implement projects and all other things. Come next year, when the vote comes, when they are voted out, the plans die. And the new one comes in and he says, I'm not working on this. I'm working on something. And that brings delusion within the functionality of the community policing strategy. So it's important that the succession plans from government, political, non-political, to the CPF are put into place nationally. And the regularly participation in the state lectures. I can now even speak to some of our CPF leadership. They've never been into a station lecture. They don't know what is it all about. And some of them, they don't even know what is an operation. So it is important that this become a regular thing that we understand is part and parcel of policing. When we continue with the minimum resources that are required to strengthen the role and the capacity of the CPF with Community Police Forum, we talked about benefits. Show me a CPF who has not supported the structure of the CPF with their own funding. I will tell you he is not a CPF member. We have stolen from our families to sponsor CPF work. So it is important that part of our question into resourcing, we look at what type of benefits can we bring in to empower the CPF so that they can function properly. It includes illegal covers, the disability covers, the funeral covers, the wellness covers, that includes the involvement that they are doing. Believe me, most of them are first responders to terrible crimes in our communities. And some of them have gone even without those counselings. Also allowances that talk to the operational daily life of the CPF. Some of the members are not working, but day in, day out, they will go out and patrol. So we said we would like those who are above us, when they look at our reports and take good note that these allowances make a difference in reducing crime. We don't want to be on the other side of the fence with the criminals. We want to be on the other side of policing, making sure that it happens properly. We've seen the challenges that under-resourcing also brings. We also looked at what type of human resourcing can we bring in to add so that we provide maximum functionality and performance. We talked about appointed of trained and passionate coordinators in your CPOs, and I've touched that. That the business against crimes and other type of business get involved in our community in fighting crime. Let's not do business in our community just for us, but let's also benefit our communities. The first-based organizations, we need you, leaders. I will say today, I was still thinking about why the chicken crossed the road. And umfundisi obuyile lana wazosivulela gave me a prophetic thing ukuthi no, it wanted to see the gatekeepers. Who are they and what are they doing? You are the gatekeepers. So do your best. Faith-based organizations include your Muslims, your Christians, izangoma, inyanga. As long as you've got a faith that you believe in, we are part of this. Let's direct this with great humanity in our community. Let's do this to benefit our communities. Let's not do this uyogeza igebenga ukuthi singabonakala emaphoyiseni or ukuthi kulahleka ama-dockets. Let's be community oriented and community lovers, your gatekeepers. Am I your brother's keeper? I am. If you are not my brother's keeper, then I think you will be in the wrong Indaba place today. You should be leaving now. Retired police officers. We talked about retiring. Those police officers that retire, we need their skills to come and work with us in the community, to help us in policing. And those who are not retired, when they are off, we also want them to engage with the community because we say they are community before they become police. We also talked about the resourcing that includes councillors. Without councillors, policing becomes hard. We need the street lights, we need proper roads, we need a service delivery that empowers policing in a format that is better. I've heard of informal settlement where police don't even go there. Only the CPF goes there. Or otherwise you park your car here and you walk 3 km into the formal settlement. So it is important. We also talked about empowering our youth. Without the youth, this fight of crime is lost. We need programs that will empower them and engage them. And in doing so, we also would like to give them advice. I know they are saying we're too old. They want to run the field themselves. But I'm also saying to them, they need to understand that advice comes from those who are older. We are a team. We are a family. Let's have programs that will engage us in fighting. The vulnerable groups, people living with disabilities, your LGBTQs, IA, and plus. So it is important that in our resourcing, we look at all these things. The private securities that have got money, we say come and engage with us. Let's fight crime together. because you've got the resources. You've got the cameras, your VumaCam, you've got everything. As the CPF, I can tell you that here in Gauteng, we're looking at big things. We have started doing jokes to deal with surveillances. There is a number of them. And some of those are owned by secret companies. We are saying to the neighborhood watch, don't be individuals' neighborhood watch. I had an opportunity to visit one neighborhood watch, and after about 3 hours of meeting with them, we tried to talk about how policing must be. They agreed, but after a week, they changed their mind, and they told me that they are a plot watch. They want to do things on their own. So divided, we will never be able to capacitiate ourselves with these resources. The force multipliers all over the country must be able to be identified. Your community patrollers, your community in blue, your GPV brigades. We've got GPV brigades that go and visit communities. Because this is one of the crimes that is difficult to police, because it's in-house. Unless the perpetrator is gone to work or gone to escorting, the GPV brigade can be able to then access the home and talk to those. The school safety officers, those who patrol at our schools, we have a number of schools that get vandalized. We try and empower our school kids and so forth.
DC, can you try and wrap up in 5 minutes? You're
Thank
up.
you. I'm wrapping up. In governments and accountability, we need governing structures that monitors and evaluates the functionality of the community policing forum. The structure must have powers to enforce compliance. In some areas, we don't have powers to enforce compliance. We must enforce with a legislative director. And the formally appointed structures must have clear roles, responsibility, and accountability standards. So in doing this, in saying this, my colleagues, the questions and comments will be done when the rest of them are done. I thank you.
Thank you very much, DC. That was Mr. Obed Mlaudzi from Gauteng. We now ask Commission 3, and would like to appeal with time, and I know it might not be fair, but we need to be out of here by 2 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson Tebucho Tebza from the Kalahari Desert, Northern Cape.
Thank you, program directors. Good morning, DM. Good morning, General. Good morning, colleagues. All protocol observed. Colleagues, this was Commission 3 that was tasked with the responsibility of looking at how should the CPFs be structured and integrated with other community-based structures. I think Commission 1 did a sterling work. We must commend them for the work that they did. Commission 2 also for the work that they've also done. Colleagues, I think community policing, yesterday we had an opportunity to have someone from the Institute of Security Studies who posed a very loaded question that whether should we really be today discussing the issue of community policing or CPFs, and what informs this Indaba? What is it that we have done? You know, I've never seen CPFs being so jealous It boiled a lot of blood. It rubbed some the wrong way. But I think that question was important. And I think this Indaba must also continue and maybe digest that thing that the Institute for Security Studies have said. Colleagues, we cannot wish away other structures that are there within our communities, but how do we then make sure that we work together with those structures? I think this commission is not going to waste any time, because I think the work, and it was also cross-cutting in terms of our responsibility. We then had these focus areas in terms of the commission that we had to look at the understanding and institutional arrangement and governance of CPFs, the integrated of CPFs with neighborhood watches and other crime prevention initiatives, the governance and oversight, the integration and coordination and planning, the benefits of community policing when successfully implemented, and ultimately the resolution. But I'm not going to go there, colleagues. I'll only focus on 2 slides, and then we will be able to give the 4th commission an opportunity. I think obviously overall the implementation plan is the one that must be able to take us forward in terms of how and who is going to do what in terms of making sure that community policing, it is achieved in this case. The confusion of whether community policing and CPFs, whether do we understand that philosophy and also the concept, it's for another day. And I think that there are also contributing factors why we are unable to optimally implement community policing in the country. Community policing was introduced to foster collaboration between the police and the community, to identifying socio-economic predisposing and precipitating factors. And yesterday we also managed to get into what do we understand when we say what is a community, the difference between a community residents, whether do we understand that. We also had a scenario where we are currently now in Sunnyside. You will find that there are those guys, foreign nationals that are coming from outside that are currently residing, as we speak, in Sunnyside. Do we identify those people as a community? Are those residents that are ultimately forming a community? So we had to grapple with some of those issues and be able to make sure that the understanding is understood by everybody. We also emphasize as Commission 1 to say that if we are going to unpack in terms of making sure that we get the understanding of community policing strategy, indeed, we did not have an opportunity to workshop the community policing strategy. Therefore, we are unable to say that what is it that is working in terms of community policing and what is it that is not working, because we were unable to workshop this particular strategy. And what are the factors that made us not to be able to achieve optimally? 3 years, I think, program director have passed for this particular 5 years for this strategy, that it needs now to be reviewed. And how do we prepare for the revision of that strategy when we only implemented an integral part, which is community in blue in this case? So we are not going to dwell too much into those issues. The integration of CPFs as a commission, what we've said that we'll have to involve all CBOs, community safety grouping, structures and interest groups. But we also have to acknowledge, colleagues, as the previous presenter said, your other structures feel free to be on their own and don't want to be part of the CPF. The reason is that some deal with crime on their own way, challenging the police in terms of how to deal with crime. They don't want this sophisticated approach that the CPFs are dealing with crime. So they want to deal with crime the hardened way and compete with the police. So that's where you will find that some of these structures don't want to be associated with the CPF because they feel that the CPFs are ceremonial. But through our substructures, your community policing, your patrollers, we are able to say that this is the work that is done by the CPF. But in most cases, it is not seen as work that is done by the CPFs. To establish other community structures, including foreign nationals, we made a commitment to AFCOP that we are going to work with AFCOP in making sure that we convene these foreign nationals, we understand and we integrate these foreign nationals, and making sure that we are aware about the activities of what foreign nationals are doing. So I hope that as provinces, as we have attended that AFCOP conference, that workshop, that we will be able to implement what we have agreed in terms of our responsibility when it comes to foreign nationals. The open line communication, I think the word for this morning, it was very relevant. Some will feel that CPFs are gatekeeping, don't want to bring in other structures. Some will feel that, but these structures don't want to be associated with the CPF. And at some point, we need to respect that and maybe support each and every initiative that will ultimately make us achieve the objective of having a crime-free South Africa. But how do we do that? We need to make sure that we manage, because if we don't manage, then we'll be left with more problems than we thought that we are trying to find solutions. The benefit of community policing when successfully implemented, and we can't overemphasize Commission 1's input and Commission 2's input, and also say it as Commission 3 that the way forward will be that implementation plan, and how do we make sure that the resolutions taken here and the inputs that are given here are fully implemented and are also monitored. But we also need to open the space as CPFs and other structures, making sure that we get inputs and take this thing even further. The increased community involvement in fighting crime, and we can't overemphasize that as structures on the ground, that as CPFs on the ground, that your from time to time contact with our communities, it is very much important. And we say, when the minister goes to these stations and visit provinces, communities come out and say that, Minister, we see a solution when they see the minister, because they want to say that the problems that this particular station is encountering, the minister will resolve it. They see solution. That is why you will find our structure, some of these other structures, coming to this meeting, because there is a principal that came, a politician that came, and they see solution for the problems that they're experiencing. Colleagues, we can't run away from the fact that the issue currently in the country is the issue of vehicles of the police that creates and also exacerbates the problems that we are having in our different communities in terms of the fight against crime. But that cannot be the only solution, the only problems to the problems that we are facing as a country. Harmonized relations within communities and police, decrease in the crime incidents within the communities, the attraction of other stakeholders to collaborate with the CPF, improve sharing intelligence and driven information, regaining public confidence in the police. Is it that one imbizo that is going to make sure that tomorrow there is a change of attitude in how our communities see the police? What is it? Whether do the police also contribute to that particular mistrust issue within our communities? And how do we then as CPFs make sure that we change the picture of that particular issue? The amendment of the current SAPS Act 68 of 1995 on the establishment of community policing to cater for the recognition of National Community Policing Board. We strongly felt that if that particular aspect can be addressed, because the coordination of these provinces, what is it that they are doing in provinces so that they don't do things that are not going to bring any change. We need a structure, a coordinating structure at that level that is going to make sure that the implementation of resolutions and policy directives are implemented at the level of provinces. So if we do not have that structure, that is catering for problems for all of us. The issue of uniformity that we want to achieve all as a country, but is uniformity going to answer our problems? Is there best practices in other provinces? Why would you want the whole country to follow one line and not take best practices from what other provinces are doing? That is also one thing that maybe the Indaba will also then look into. The collaboration with all government departments for implementation of community policing. The reality is that these sister departments don't see themselves playing any crime prevention role, even if whether it is within a particular act of a department, but they always see it as a police problem. Therefore, Deputy Minister, we are unable to bring in these sister departments and playing their role that they are supposed to play. For example, social development, education in terms of school safety, traditional affairs in terms of our traditional policing, and the likes, and the other ones that I did not mention. the review of sector policing. One of the presenters also mentioned the issue of saying that we implement different at the line of provinces and we exclude other structures. I don't think that is the case. If we properly implement sector policing at the level of station, and we understand that each and every CBO, CBO, CF, and FBOs in that particular sector are invited to a meeting of a sector to establish a sector crime forum, there is no way that we are going to lose anyone in the establishment of a CPF. But because of the problems that sector policing is currently experiencing as a legislative, therefore the problems that the CPF is also encountering at the level of the ground. So if that can be reviewed then and properly be implemented, I think the problems of inclusion will be addressed through that process. That is what we say as a commission. The community policing in Indaba should also be hosted in all provinces. Yes, we are at this level, but we felt that we could have taken it from a station level or a district level, then province. Then when we come here, we consolidate the views of what provinces have then consolidated at that level. So as a commission, we felt that we could have started at that level and then obviously come. So we are requesting to the principals that let's take it to provinces. Develop a monitoring and evaluation tool. There are many tools that CSPS has developed. There is also a tool that VISPOL has developed in terms of monitoring. But this monitoring, there is also a tool for the community policing strategy. But really, are we doing justice in terms of those tools? Should those tools be reviewed? We felt that those tools should be revisited and check whether are we properly implementing. Build meaningful relations and strengthen the relationship between CPFs and the police at local level. The responsibility of CPFs remains with the station commander and a coordinator. Detectives, support services, they feel that they have no relations with CPFs. Therefore, that thing creates a problem. So we are requesting here as a commission to say that through those engagements, we'll then be able to say that let everybody, the station commander with the rest of his team, be able to see that the CPF does not become a responsibility of the station commander only and the poor coordinator. Include foreign nationals in sub-forums at the local level as they are part of the community. That is a request that we are saying that we should be able to involve foreign nationals. But obviously we understand these guys are business guys, some of them, that they are available at a particular time and they are not available at a particular time. How do the embassies of these countries, of these foreign nationals, assist us in making sure that these guys also play a prominent role? I have indicated the issue of AFCOP that we have made a commitment as provinces, all 9 provinces, that at some point we will give also feedback. So it should be part of our reporting to say that how far have we come as provinces in terms of implementing the AFCOP resolutions that we have taken with AFCOP. It's part of the interim regulations to say that CPFs in nature, they are apolitic. So it means then there is still those heads where there are politics within the CPFs. But the interim regulations, I think it is explicitly clear that CPFs should be apolitic. And we also believe that they should be apolitic. Building a relationship between the police and the community depends on the CPF. Additionally, positive relations will lead to better outcomes in terms of safety and security in order to effectively handle existing and future crime-related issues within communities. Interdisciplinary collaborative policing is essential. Colleagues, that is the end of Commission 3. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commission 3. I just want to... Commission 4, you're going to take us to tea break. We already wish to drink tea at some point. Thank you very much, Ms. Lucas from the Western Cape. She's the chairperson of the Western Cape in South Africa still. Thank you.
Good morning. On behalf of Commission 4, I am greeting our Deputy Minister, our National Commissioner for Police, the rest of the leadership of the SAPS, our community representatives from the CPF, and other strategic partners. I greet you all, and I also want to say all protocol observed. As a commission, we were consisting of 38 members who were very vocal and expressive, and we had robust debates, and I think we were led very well by our facilitator. We thank you for that, ma'am. I'm now presenting the product of our commission, which is Commission 4. The aim of our commission was to discuss how we can promote community policing in South Africa. And that was also our theme. We had to develop a marketing strategy as part of our work in the commission. And the methodology we decided to use was to use the communication process. And first we had to identify a key message that we wanted to convey. And before we could get to that message, we had to look at what is the research saying? What are the crime patterns? And what is the current situation in our communities? We then had to go over to encoding the message, meaning how we want to convey that message. We resolved to keep it sweet and short and simple, or keep it sweet and short and simple. Yes, we wanted to make it responsible messaging, and then we acknowledged the fact that we had to communicate internally before we could communicate externally. Identifying also the platforms or the channels of communication that we want to use. We know nowadays social media is a big issue, but there are also other traditional channels like print media, pamphleteering, loud hailing, and all those. We've decided to use that. And then we came to the decoding of the message, how we want the receiver of the message to receive our message. And we said there that our message should be interpreted correctly. It should bring about the desired change. We had to identify how many people our message should reach and who are our target group or the age groups. And then eventually we could then go over to convey the message to the receiver. But we had first to define, when we say community policing, how do we define community policing? And through engagements in the group, a lot of ideas came about. And I will just run through it so that I can convey the discussion of the group. And the first definition that came out was it should be an interaction between the police and the community with the aim of fighting crime. It should be activities of our community, formally and informally, with the aim of correcting crime. It should be partnership with two parties. It should be partnership with two parties which would be the SAPS and our community to reach a common goal of a crime-free community. Communities that should take ownership of their own safety and working together with the SAPS and other law enforcement agencies to enhance the safety of our communities. We want to enhance safety. We don't always want to fight, but we want to enhance safety. I think that's very important. We also said law enforcement should apply their skills to collaborate with communities and stakeholders in the fight against crime. And the actions taken by communities should assist police in the fight against crime by patrolling and having community informers. That speaks to visibility of our community. We acknowledge the fact that SAPS cannot solve crime on its own, and that the community needs to be the ears and the eyes. I always say we cannot only be the eyes and the ears of the police. We are community members first, so we must be the eyes and ears of our communities. I must know and I must be able to look after my neighbor's property when my neighbor is not there. And then we said, we should always strive to enhance relations between the community and the police. Another definition is democracy in action. Considering our history, where we come from with the yellow vans, we should build trust and shift the mindsets of the community and police to take us forward in the fight against crime. We should change the negative perceptions of communities about the police because it is still existing and very prevalent out there. Communities should save time and resources by providing information. We cannot have our police running around looking for suspects without having the intelligence that they would get from the community. And that the community is our best intelligence in fighting crime. There should be a quick mobilization of resources, and we should enhance police accountability, because the police is and should be accountable to the community. The dialogue to identify community expectations, needs, and I want to add open doors so that we can keep the conversation going to get us to a point where we have a common understanding and move forward in the fight against crime. Communities must talk to the community by providing information to the police, and we as a CPF, we must play a role in the community. I think the word ceremonial came up a lot. We cannot just be giving messages of support, being there when we need to be, that face that present a partnership, but we should be playing a very active role in our communities. And I know there are many CPF chairpersons that don't sleep. There are many CPF chairpersons and members whose homes become police stations within the communities. We should use all legal parameters to monitor and align activities of the community by police and align stakeholders. Moving forward, we also said community policing is the vehicle that helps the community to understand what services the police render to the community. We should also assess SAPS and community to get better crime fighting initiatives through partnership. It reduces fear and increases trust. The CPF is critical as it balances the ratio between SAPS members and community. That was also identified as a definition by the group. And in conclusion, we are saying successful community policing, it's us, all of us, and it's not me, and you. Okay, we spoke about communication, and we said we needed to come up with a marketing plan. And the purpose of that marketing plan would be to get a buy-in from all stakeholders in the community on community policing. We should get involvement. It would help us to get the involvement of everyone, the commitment, and for everyone to take ownership. It shouldn't be, it's again the CPF thing. It's again the police doing their thing. But we're saying all stakeholders in the community, they should take ownership. And the plan that we're presenting should augment the product. It should make the product even better and greater. We come back to the message. Remember, we spoke about the message in the beginning. What message do we want to convey? Again, the commission brainstormed about this, and the following messages came up. I'll run through it quickly, Program Director. The CPF can never be political. We should never politicize crime, otherwise we are in big trouble. Who is who and what is doing what? That should be clearly defined internally. We should mobilize the community against crime. We should make your voice or our voices count in the fight against crime. We should join our local community policing forum. And we should say no to women abuse. We should prevent crime from happening by keeping our kids off the streets, taking that responsibility as parents, and not give that responsibility to teachers at school to discipline our kids. We should make the community needs known on how you want to be policed. I think that speaks a lot, that the community should have a say in how they want to be policed. The community should have a say, whether it's through the CPF or whether they come to Imbizos to express themselves, but we should allow for that to happen. Make the community needs known. Okay, I already did that. Encourage community to report vacant houses. And this is a big problem, because in these vacant premises, whether it's buildings, offices that are vacant, homes, that is where crime happens. So there is a program by the local authorities, I know, where they identify problem premises or problem buildings, that they then go and they make sure that those buildings, the owners take ownership of their buildings. Another message was join CPF, stop crime, join the fight against crime, stop buying stolen goods, report any criminal activity to the police, encouraging the community to come forward and to report. We still have a lot of unreported crimes in this country. A partnership between the community and the police to prevent crime is another message. Community policing is everybody's business or responsibility to fight crime. Be the eyes and the ears of the police, that comes up again. Active participation by ex-offenders and entire community in breaking the cycle of crime. We've heard that ex-offenders is also a source of intelligence that can assist police. So if someone is serious about changing his life, we should really assist that person to get to the point of being a responsible citizen. Our community, our safety, our future, our fight. I think that is a slogan that the commission come up with, building safer communities together. And the key emphasis is here again on together. Improve relationship with different community sectors, Let's not leave anyone out. As my colleague from the Northern Cape has said, sector policing should really be re-looked at so that no one is left behind. You are the master of your safety and security by effectively participating in community police forums. Again, CPF's coming up to prevent crime by involving every sector of our community. Some of the last messages encourage criminal record expulsion, second chances to ex-convicts who are serious to change their lives, that the time for them has lapsed in terms of qualifying for the record expulsion and for them to come back into our communities to play a more constructive role. Let's protect our communities. Another slogan, allow or recruit youth to join the CPF and the youth desk. Silas, this is a message we want to send out. Respect your body. Substance abuse kills. Crime doesn't pay. Importance of community policing should be emphasized in our communities. Crime prevention for the community, by encouraging community participation. I think that is a message that goes across to make sure that everyone is involved. We then come back to the channels. Remember, we said there should be channels of communication, how we want to communicate, what channels we want to use. Electronic media, social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, TikTok, radio, television, still very important. Print media, there we go back to pamphlet distribution at schools, at sports events, and also using the billboards, door-to-door, face-to-face, very effective channel to use as well. And then the schools, you know, in a community we have thousands of children going to various schools. Just to put a letter, arrange with the principal to put a letter in the school bag of the kid so that the message can get home. Internal media. We know there are internal protocols, there are websites, there are magazines, how we convey the message. Stakeholder engagements, which is a very big thing in our country through Imbizo, is Indaba, awareness campaigns, community engagements. There's also a channel that can be used. And in the informal settlements, loud hailing. If there is not loud hailing done, the community won't come out because they haven't heard the familiar voice of the community leader inside the van or inside the car, encouraging them to come out or to give over the message. Public gatherings, we've heard from our traditional leader that in the rural areas, in the lullies, announcements are being made at funerals, at weddings, also at religious taverns to get the message across. The youth networks, our transport interchange areas, your train stations, airports, taxi ranks, very important. Then there's also SA Brewery. That marketing label, we see it on the cigarettes boxes, we also see it on the beer bottles, brandy bottles, speaking to responsible drinking. In this instance, we can use that medium to speak about community policing, to get the buy-in of everyone to join hands in the fight against crime, and then obviously at the roadblocks. Our target audience should be our local residents, youth, faith-based organizations, schools, education sector. Here we speak tertiary, we speak primary schools, high schools, as well as creches. Vulnerable groups, women, children, persons with disability, and the LGBTQI A plus community, traditional healers, labor force, tourists visiting our beautiful country, international athletes, visitors, government departments, community-based organizations, non-profit organizations, non-governmental organizations, activists, and rehabilitated parolees. How do we communicate the message and how frequent? I think here we said at least once a quarter, we should communicate with our constituency, our communities, the message of community policing, how to get involved, and what is the expectation when we speak about community policing. Who are the stakeholders and what role do they play? Our stakeholders, again, is the faith-based organizations, the moral regeneration movement, traditional leaders, healers, Isangoma, and you name it, community-based organizations, taxi associations, political partners, councillors, politicians, educators, business forums, sector forums, civil society organizations, government departments, schools, youth desk, youth leadership, NGOs, it should be organized labor, development forums, ratepayers associations, farming communities and associations, neighborhood watches, block watches, men's voices, men for change, liquor and second-hand goods forums, liquor manufacturers. We're also referring to CIRA as an important stakeholder, the tourist industry, sports associations, films and publication board, business against crime media, and other law enforcement agencies. And in order for us to convey this message, we need to have resources. And an important resource for us identified is a human resource. We should have skilled people, we should have volunteers, we should have everyone on board. We should also have money, because we know without money, we cannot do anything these days. We should have vehicles, we should have data, we should have venues for these meetings that I referred to as the channels that we want to use. And we should have branding, and branding is applicable to everything, because you should be identifiable, as the colleague from Gauteng said when he presented. You should be identifiable. When you come, people should already know on the way how you are branded, whether it's your vehicle, clothing branding. People should know who you are so that they can receive you better. Governance structure, when we speak
you
of...
left with 5 minutes, Chair.
Noted, Chair. When we speak of governance structure, we say this marketing plan should be community-driven. And the LOC, or the Local Organizing Committee, should consist of all identified stakeholders. Part of the LOC must be the CPF Public Relations Officer, Communication Officer. GCIS, very important when it comes to communication, Department of Community Safety or Community Safety and Liaison, different names in different provinces. Stakeholders will be identified by means of an elective process, and service level agreements will be signed with the stakeholders, and the marketing plan must be implemented by means of a project approach. I'm nearly done. The critical success factors of our marketing plan is the governance structure, which will be, everyone will be involved. There will be a funding model. And politicians with their budgets becomes very important. We then went over to challenges, because this was also part of our brief or our mandate as a committee. We had to identify a few challenges, Chair, and just to go briefly through it, that there's no uniformity when you speak provinces. Western Cape will do one thing, on one way and another province will do the same thing in a different manner. And we should never assume that one size fits all. What's happening in the Northwest, where the community is mostly rural, is not necessarily happening in other provinces which have a more urban nature. SAP structure is not capacitated to support the CPF. The CBO at local stations are performing a lot of different roles with very limited resources. The community morale, again, it needs to be uplifted so that that trust and the confidence can be restored in the SAPS. Understanding the concept of partnership, I think it was the gentleman from Business Against Crime who spoke at length about partnership. And yeah, he spoke very eloquently, and he gave us a lot of food for thought when it came to partnership. Deficiencies in the capacity to meet expectations of our partners, we acknowledge that. The challenges, again, the issue of uniformity, the issue of political office, where we'll find some provinces, the politicians, whether it's MMCs, MECs, they are more supportive. And other provinces, they are less supportive. Structure is not clear, hijacking of the goals of the CPF, seeing anti-crime structures now mushrooming all over the country. And we believe there is a misunderstanding between the community safety forums, or forums, yes, and the CPF. I think came very out clear in the commission is that there should be a clear role clarification when it comes to those two structures. The CSF role is to coordinate the crime prevention initiatives of local government and not to replace CPFs. CSF are role plans in the CPF meetings. The CFS is functioning differently. The relationship is strained in different provinces. Coming back to the issue of clear role clarification, challenges continue. CSF is from the municipality. Just to summarize that sentence, it is basically saying that, you know, with all the coalitions going in the metros, there isn't, political stability. You get another MMC every other day, and the priorities change. And the perception from the committee, it would be better placed, the CSF should be better placed in the office of the city manager, which is more stable. And there is no budget from the SAPS for CPFs, which is a fact. The CFF, sub-projects of the metro, I think that is again just a duplication of what we said before. Our intention is to change the tide in respect of crime in our beloved South Africa. I think it's the Moruti who said that we want to change the tide in respect of crime in our beloved country, South Africa. And how we will do that? Through the mobilization of our community in the fight against crime, the implementation of community policing, promote community relations, community police relations, educate and awareness raising, and accountability from all partners. We should be held accountable as community. Likewise, our partners in the law enforcement sector. The way forward, and I'm done now, MC, Program Director, the CFF must have their own partner, CPF must be the only part of SAPS, and that came out of the committee, I emphasize that. We should empower the CPF. I think government should empower the CPF. There are too many structures mushrooming. All community-based organizations must be coordinated under the CPF, one mind set to fight crime. We have one mind set to fight crime, and we have many budgets. There are many budgets to utilize in a good form in order for all of us to understand the custodian of the entity should be the CPF. Here we speak community perspective. You have all these community in blue patrollers, neighborhood watch, and we can name them, but it should be coordinated under the CPF so that the resources can be used more efficiently and effectively. CPF need to enter into service level agreements with stakeholders to mobilize policing, stakeholders such as CSF and ward committees to come from CPF structure and should never be politically aligned. Further consultation, we felt there is a need, like my colleague said, to go down to the ground by virtue of having provincial indabas so that we can invite the local station CPFs. Continuing on the way forward, and then I'm done. Implementation of the status of the 2018 Community Policing Strategy. How far are we? We need to know that. Why the Police Act lists CPF, Independent Complaints Directorate, National Secretariat for Safety and Security, and Provincial Secretariats for Safety and Security as oversight bodies. But the CPF is the only one from all those mentioned that doesn't have a budget. Why was the Community in Blue created and resourced rather than investing in the current long-standing structures of CPFs? And our statement is CPFs are the constitutionalized body legislative structure that may partner with the SAPS. Coordinated approach, again, all these other stakeholders to fall under the CPF as the accounting body, command and control, and CPFs are apolitical. Lastly, we said we are a commission that don't have all the answers, and we believe in a collective wisdom, and we're saying that the issue of finalizing the NPO number for the CPFs so that the CPFs can go out and raise funds from businesses should be finalized, and that members of SEPS must be active after hours or when they're on leave, over weekends when they are off, those who are working in the offices, and join the fight against crimes in the communities where they come from. And then also we are saying that there are many volunteers in the CPF that do meet the criteria of being recruited as police constables. I think there we said at least when you come from the structure of the CPF and you apply, there should be a plus point for you. And then we also have to explore, and we call on this collective leadership sitting in front of me to explore the rehabilitated parolees versus ex-offenders versus probationers to spread the message of crime does not pay, because there's a lot of debate. Do we involve them? Don't we involve them? What should we do? And we're giving it over to this house. We thank you.
Thank you very much, Commission 4. Second, Good Hope, Cape of Good Hope. We're going to break, but this is what we're going to do. Quickly, we are all booked here until tomorrow morning. So thank you, National Commission, for paying for that one. I hope there's a socializing budget also in that. So don't rush and change those that are traveling far and close. You're not going anywhere. We sleeping here. Let's run away from home. It's allowed today. Thank you, dear. So we're going to allow DM, National Commission, and the entourage to leave. But please, I want to ask Colonel Makhato not to open that door until DM has passed there, so that we follow the protocol. DM, you're on entourage. Let's all stand up, please. We just wait for DM to pass that door, and then we will then be allowed to move. 15 minutes, it's now, we are back at 10 to. 5 to. 5 to 12. 5 to 12, we're back here. Otherwise, I'm gonna call you outside by name. Thank you very much, Nosipiwe Ngubane and Masina. Paul Masina, thank you very much for doing outstanding work. Thank you, Mbovu. Thank you so much.